Today we're starting with coffee. Not awake yet. Hi guys, my name is Trinity, and if you are here, you must be here to talk about books because that's why I'm here. And today I am going to be talking you guys through my TBR cart. I asked the Discord if this would be a video that they'd be interested in, and pretty much everybody said yes. Everybody likes to see what's on a Booktuber's TBR. And I have a lot of books that I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to try and talk about each one briefly because, as you guys saw by the opening of this video, I have quite a few books on my TBR. So I'm just going to work my way through the way they are on the TBR cart because I have a stack on top of the TBR cart and then the ones in the TBR cart. Now these aren't all of the physical books on my TBR, but when I move something to the TBR cart, that does mean that I want to get to it before I get to the other books that are on my physical TBR. So the first book that is on my TBR cart is The Collective by Alison Galen. Now this is a book of the month pick. This is about mothers taking their vengeance. And so I am very excited to read it. I had a little bit of FOMO when I heard everybody else talking about it because it sounds like it's going to be fantastic. So many people have loved it. And yeah. The tagline says, "No killer goes unpunished." Next would be Paybacks, a Witch by Alana Harper. Now this one is one that a friend recommended to me when I didn't like the X-Hex. She thought that I would really like this. Her name is Kayla, and I'll link her channel down below. But this is supposed to be snarky and fun. It says, Emily Harlow is a witch, but not a very powerful one, in part because she hasn't been home to the magical town of Thistlegrove in years. Her self-imposed exile has a lot to do with the complicated family history and a desire to forge her own way in the world, and only the very tiniest bit to do with Gareth Blackmore, heir to the most powerful magical family in town, and casual breaker of hearts and destroyer of dreams. So yes, it does have the same feel as the X-Hex does, and I'm very, very excited to start this one because you guys know I love witches and urban fantasy. I really love it, so I'm looking forward to this one a lot. All the Murmuring Bones by A.G. Slater. I am so excited to read this. This was purchased for me for Christmas by my friend Andrew, and he knows how much I love gothic tales, and this is supposed to be dark and gothic, and I've heard a few people talk about this, not a lot, but this sounds like it's going to be 100% up my alley. I am hoping to get to this in January, but I do have a very packed January already. I will be doing a TBR. We're going to bring back the TBRs because I have plans for 2022 and I want to stick to them. So I am hoping that I can get to this in January, but we'll see. Now, one that will be coming up on my January TBR that was also purchased for me from Andrew is We Are the Dead by Mike Shackle. Now, this is a dark fantasy, and I have been thoroughly excited to read it ever since I did my Twitter Darlings video. I'll link that down below as well. But this is The Last War, Book 1. The war is over, the enemy won. Giles people learned the hard way that there is no second chances. The Egrill, their ancient enemy, struck with magic so devastating that Jai's armies were wiped out. Now terror reigns in the streets, and friend turns on friend just to live another day. Somehow, Teenstra, a deserter, a failure, nothing but a coward, survived. She wants no more than to hide from the chaos, but dragged into a desperate plot to retake Jaya, surrounded by people willing to do anything to win the fight, this time Teenstra will need to do more than hide. If Jai is going to have a second chance after all, this time she will need to be a hero. So it sounds like it's going to be really good. I kind of got caught on likely the next Game of Thrones by Glenn Cook at the top there. I'm very excited for this one. Very excited for this one. And there is a read along on the Oasis Discord for this one in January. So I will be getting to this one in January, definitely. Another one that is definitely going to be a priority series for me in 2022, possibly April though, because I am planning to join in on a friend's Asian Fantasy Month, would be The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. Ignore my dog snoring next to me. This is Asian fantasy, and I've heard it's a little sci-fantasy. There's a little bit of a steampunk element to this story and dragons. So that's what I've heard. Now, I have heard that this is fairly character-driven, which has put me off to it in the past, but I am pretty excited about this series because I do love steampunk. You guys know the Draconis Memoria is my favorite fantasy series, so it has some similarities that I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. Coffee break. All right, on a sci-fi note, I have John Scalzi's The Collapsing Empire. I have heard nothing but great things about John Scalzi, so I have been dying to pick up a book of his, and then I found this at the buy-sell trade, so I grabbed it to give it a go. It's pretty dang short, so this could be a before the end of the year read. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to work in all of the books I said I was going to read by the end of the year and some review requests, so we shall see, we shall see. But this one is chock full of political machinations from what I understand. People have left Earth to create a larger empire, but the network that they have established is now collapsing. So, the collapsing empire. And I'm very, very excited to start this series. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because you guys have seen it in a couple of videos recently, but The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. You guys know I am eager to start this one, and I do plan to start this one before the end of the year, but again, there's a lot of books that I wanted to finish before the end of the year that I'm trying to get through, but this one sounds like it could be really good. And I've said before too that a lot of people who have read this really liked it. There's not a lot of people who would deem it a favorite, but they've really liked the series. So next would be The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo. I cannot pronounce that last name. I am so sorry. And this is about a guy who works for a company trying to find foodstuffs and stumbles across an AI that was once a pleasure slave, and they end up traversing the world together. And that's all I really know about this book, but I do find the cover highly intriguing. It looks like it's got some like steampunk elements and some weird fantasy sci-fi stuff included in it. And so I wanted to give it a go because it just looks really cool. Next, we have a series that I am planning to start next year, and that is the Tamarra series. Now, this is Napoleonic era with dragons, and that is what drew me to this series. Last year for Christmas, I got this from Evie. Whenever I was part of the Shelf Space Discord, we did a gift exchange, and she purchased the trilogy for me. I'm very excited to get into this. I just read Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and I absolutely loved it. And so I'm very eager to pick up something else by her. I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to start this trilogy, but looking forward to it quite a bit. Next, we have another book of the month offering by Jennifer Saint. This is Ariadne. You guys know that I am a sucker for a Greek retelling, and Ariadne is a Greek retelling. Ariadne, princess of Crete, grows up greeting the dawn from her beautiful dancing floor and listening to her nursemaid stories of gods and heroes, but beneath her golden palace echo the ever-present hoofbeats of her brother, the Minotaur, a monster who demands blood sacrifice. And I have always loved stories about the Minotaur because you never really know what the monsters were created for. And I love figuring that stuff out because I think it's really, really cool. Next, we have a thriller that you guys have seen in a recent video, and that is An Unwanted Guest by Sherry Lapina. Can't get the sticker off, sorry. And this is an isolated thriller that I have been really wanting to read for quite some time, and I just keep bypassing it. It's not that I don't want to read it, I really do. But this is another that I had planned to read by the end of the year, but we shall see. There's a couple that are taking priority a little bit right now, but yes, isolated thriller, cabin in the woods, loses power, someone dies. Next would be Ghostwood Song by Erica Waters. This is a young adult that is tied to magic in the forest, and I love forest settings around October, November. I didn't get to this one again. However, I do still plan on reading it, and it's another that might end up in my must read before the end of the year because this was purchased for me last Christmas, so I would really like to get around to reading it. I've heard that this book is actually very well written, and so I'm looking forward to giving Erica Waters a try. Next, we have The Lotus Kingdoms, The Stone in the Skull by Elizabeth Bear. I've never read anything by Elizabeth Bear, but I've heard that a lot of people really like her, and so I wanted to give her a go. I found this and the second book in hardback at the buy sell trade, so I really wanted to pick up more female fantasy, and that will be coming up in February. I'll have an announcement for that as well. But I really wanted to put my 2 cents in on this. And I know this book, I think, features a golem, possibly, or an AI. I'm not really sure exactly how that works because I do believe it is magic and not sci-fi that is controlling this particular creature who's trying to deliver a message to another kingdom, and there is an escort to the golem that is trying to deliver this message, and shenanigans ensue. But I'm looking forward to tackling this one in February of next year. Next, we have The Alchemist's Daughter by Katherine Mcmahon. This was a cover buy, but this was also next to another book that I will be talking about here in a minute. Mcmahon is what caught my attention because I was looking for a different Mcmahon, but this has a very much of a Frankenstein feel to it, and I'm very, very excited to read it. I did, however, figure out that it was pretty low rated on Goodreads, and so I think that has stopped me from picking it up, and I might end up doing a TBR 10 video again so that I can read some of the lower rated books on my TBR and some of the highest rated books on my TBR. But this one, just like I said, it has a Frankenstein vibe to it, so I'm very much looking forward to it. Now, this one has come up in one of my recent videos for my TBR cleanout because nobody who reads the books that I do has even talked about this book. However, I came across it because I like historical fiction, I like snarky characters, and it immediately caught my attention. But like I said, nobody who reads like I do has picked up this book. It says, the comical, fantastical, romantical, entirely true, but not really, story of Lady Jane Grey. So, yes, I'm still looking forward to this one, I think. I'm pretty sure it'll be up my alley. I just haven't had any sort of confirmation from anybody else that it would actually be up my alley. Next, we have Black Feathers by Joseph DeLacy. Now, this has come up in a couple of my videos as well. This is fantasy horror, and I'm looking very much forward to it. I love dark fantasy, so fantasy horror just screams me. This has been on my TBR for a very long time, so if I can find an audio book of this, I'm probably going to try and finish it before the end of the year. Okay, so this is Legacy of Light by Matthew Ward. Why is this one on my TBR? Because it is a placeholder for Legacy of Ash. It is reminding me that I need to pick up the series. I have the audiobook of Legacy of Ash, and then I won Legacy of Light on a Twitter giveaway. So I own 2 of them, and in typical Trinity fashion, I don't own the second book of the series. I own the first and the third. So yeah, this is kind of a placeholder for Legacy of Ash. I can't really give you a synopsis of Legacy of Ash because this is the 3rd book, and if I read the back of this one, you guys might be like, wait a second, you skipped something. But this is a series that I do plan to tackle in 2022, and I will also link that video down below as well. All right, for a series that absolutely terrifies me because of its scope and what it is always compared to. The Lycanus trilogy by James Islington. Shadow of What Was Lost is always compared to The Wheel of Time. You guys probably know my feelings on The Wheel of Time, so I'm a little scared of this series, but it's epic fantasy. We have a ragtag band of people coming together for a common cause. This book scares me. All right, the next is The Thousand Names by Django Wexler. This is also in that video that I just talked about of the books that I plan to read next year, or series I plan to tackle next year at least. The Shadow Campaigns. I have been wanting to tackle some Flintlock fantasy. I have been wanting to tackle some Django Wexler. So I am very much looking forward to this and figuring out if Flintlock fantasy is something that will work for me. I know there's a lot of people who don't like guns in their fantasy. I don't think that that will throw me so much as I don't like my fantasy being a detective novel. And that's the only experience I've had with Flintlock fantasy so far. Next is a book that I started but didn't finish. Now, this was not a permanent DNF. I just started this series so I picked this up for a readathon, and the reason I set it aside was because it is very slow moving. Now, typically this will make me DNF anyway, but I did find the very beginning of this book really interesting. This has also come up in a TBR cleanout video, but I think there's a chance that I might like this despite it being a slower paced novel. From what I've heard, I do think there's a good chance that I will like it. This is about the Djinn, and it is a very desert fantasy. My dog is snoring up a storm, guys, and I totally apologize for that. But he's being quiet and he's not waking up my husband. Set in 18th century Cairo, so I do think that I will like this. I'm just going to have time to really comb through it. Kind of like with Ship of Magic. Just sit down and do some immersive reading and really get into it when I can, like when I have the time to devote to something so slow. Next up on books that terrify me, we have The Ember Blade by Chris Wooding. This has been touted as Lord of the Rings for the modern age. That does excite me. It actually really does. I love the story of Lord of the Rings. I do not like the writing of Lord of the Rings. So it really does excite me that this has been compared to Lord of the Rings by multiple people, not just Ed McDonald saying it on the cover, which is what made me pick it up in the first place. But I'm looking forward to this a lot. Now, there's a good chance I won't even like it, but if I don't like it, it's probably going to be pacing and character driven that makes me not like it, not necessarily writing and the story. Next, we have The Invisible Library by Genevieve Cogman. Now, I've talked about this in another recent video when I was doing my rapid fire recommendations and pretty much trying to get everybody to buddy read my TBR cart with me. But I've heard nothing but great things about this. This is on just about every fantasy lover's shelf that I have seen. And it is about a woman who works for a mysterious library, a magical library. And there are very much similarities between this and Library of the Unwritten, which I absolutely loved. And let's talk about that for just a second. Archive of the Forgotten. I absolutely loved the Library of the Unwritten. However, I have not talked to anybody who likes this book, and so I have put it off. This was one of my most anticipated books of the year, and then all of the bad reviews started coming through, and I freaked out a little bit because I love the Library of the Unwritten so much. I gave it 5 stars. It was so great that I am scared I'm going to read this and unhaul both of them because I like stories in completion. I don't really keep a story that was part of a series unless I keep the whole series. So we will see when I get here. This again is probably one I will try to fit in before the end of the year because I want to get it knocked out. I want to read it and figure out for myself if I'm actually going to enjoy it. All right, if you guys follow Alan, you'll probably have seen this series quite a bit. Shadows of the Apt by Adrian Tchaikovsky, Empire in Black and Gold. I found this awesome cover at the buy-sell trade, and this is a fantasy series that ties in so many different elements. It's very complex, and I absolutely love the premise of it. Like, this is called The Wasp Empire. If you don't know, Adrian Tchaikovsky likes bugs. And he uses bugs in his writing a lot. His aliens are spiders. So, you know, it's a really cool concept. And so I'm very excited to pick up more Adrian Tchaikovsky and see if Shadows of the Apt will be a series that I enjoy, because there's a lot of people right now who are reading it due to Alan's read-along, and everybody seems to be enjoying it quite a bit. Now for the pinkest book to ever exist, The Phlebotomist by Chris Panettiere. This is a sci-fi. In a near future where citizens are subject to the mandatory blood draw, government phlebotomist Willa Wallace witnesses an event that makes her question her whole world. To recover from a cataclysmic war, the harvest was instituted to pass blood to those affected by radiation, but this charitable act has led to a society segregated entirely by blood type. Government blood contractor Patriot rewards your generous gift based on the compatibility of your donation, meaning that whoever can give the most gets the most in return. It sounds like it's going to be scary. So, little sci-fi, little horror. You know, that's kind of my jam. But I have a friend on Twitter named Ollie who absolutely loved this book and got me really excited to read it. And of course, you know, it's hot pink, so it draws the eye, and I have it on my TBR cart, so I'm looking at it all the time. And I'm very excited to start this one. Next is Wool by Hugh Howie. You guys will have seen this in a recent video of mine as well. It was in one of my TBR clean out videos. And this is one that I picked it up at the buy-sell trade, so I didn't spend very much on it. But I've heard that this is one that gets under your skin. And those are the types of books that really stick with me. And so I'm very excited to read this. It's very heavily thematic though, and sometimes those books work for me and sometimes they really don't. Because I like story. I like plot. So if we rely too heavily on themes, I get lost in it. My brain just drifts off into space. But I do think that I will like this, especially since I know it's going to get under my skin. What would you do if the world outside was deadly and the air you breathe could kill, and you lived in a place where every birth required a death, and the choices you made could save lives or destroy them? This is Jules' story. This is the world of wool. Next, we have Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. It is a series that I plan to start in 2022. And so many of my friends absolutely love this. It is young adult, but sometimes, all the times, all I need to hear is assassins, and I am sold. Assassins, thieves, vampires, and fae. Those are the keywords that will get me to pick up just about any book. But I know that there are quite a few booktubers out there who love this series. And I am ready to find out what the hype is about. And one of my friends from Discord absolutely loves this series too. And so looking very much forward to getting into these. Now, I don't know why these are put together. There was no necessarily reason for them to be put together, but yes, they both start with poison. Well, Poison is the name of this one, and that one was Poison Study. Before the Tudors, there were the Borgias. More passionate, more dangerous, more deadly. Yes, Borgias is all you have to say. We all know the Borgias are corrupt. If you've ever watched the TV show The Borgias or anything related to the Borgias, you will know that they are a very, very corrupt family. And I love historical fiction. I definitely love stories centering around corrupt people in history. And so looking very much forward to this. Roses and Rot by Kat Howard. This is on my Pop Sugar Challenge, and I will do a Pop Sugar update for you guys before the end of the year. I am trying to hit what is left on my Pop Sugar Challenge, and so there's a good chance I will read this before the end of the year. But this is about an artist, or two sisters who are artists who go to an art retreat to escape their horrible mother. And the tagline says, "What would you sacrifice in the name of success?" And in the course of the story, the two girls are pitted against each other to see who will come out on top. And I'm very excited to get into this. This, again, like I said, I picked this for my Pop Sugar Challenge for a book about an artist, and one of them is a writer and the other is a dancer. So writer counts. Next, we have Lancelot by Giles Christian. You guys know how much I love Giles Christian's writing, and I am very much looking forward to this because it's a Camelot retelling. And yeah, I don't think I need to say much more about this particular book. And then we have The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. Ooh, sorry, my allergies are starting to go a little crazy. Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. This is a fantasy that ties a lot of fantasy creatures into the story, which makes me super excited because we get witches, we get elves that are like vampiric creatures. We get quite a bit of fantasy creatures coming together to stop the end of the world. And you guys know my friend Andrew, I talk about him quite often, is someone who has opposite reading tastes of me, but we are going to plan to buddy read this in the new year. I don't think it's going to be January because I think we have another buddy read planned for January. But I am super, super pumped for this one, and I think I'm going to enjoy it. Everybody else seems to enjoy it. That doesn't always bode well for me, but I think that there's a lot in here for me to enjoy. Next, we have The Death of Jane Lawrence. by Caitlyn Starling. This is a gothic tale about a woman who pursues a marriage of convenience, only to figure out that her husband has some pretty dark secrets, and he tells her that he will marry her as long as she never shows up to his dilapidated mansion. And something happens, she breaks down, gets lost, and ends up at the mansion anyway, and things go badly for her. So, love gothic tales, very much looking forward to this one. Lamp Black Wolf Gray by Paula Braxton. If you guys have hung around for any amount of time, you know I love Paula Braxton's writing. So this is just another offering of hers that I'm looking forward to reading. The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. Now, this is another isolated thriller that I am very much looking forward to and had planned to finish by the end of the year. However, I don't think I'm going to get to this one. I really wanted to plug in what thrillers I did have into my end of the year, but this one I'm just not going to get around to reading. Next, we have The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. Now, this is one that I do hope to get to by the end of the year. And this is about witchcraft having consequences. And I really love it when you get to see the consequences of magic. That's one of my favorite tropes, I guess. And I don't really like when we don't see the consequences of magic. So looking very much forward to this book. Again, I'm probably going to say that about all of these books because they're on my TBR cart. I have been excited for these books. And I said I was looking for Mcmahon when I picked up The Alchemist's Daughter. This is why. Jennifer McMahon's Burntown. I really enjoyed Jennifer McMahon's writing in the past. I like The Winter People, and there's another of hers that I've read that I really like. I don't always like her endings though, so I keep reading her books thinking that she'll stick the landing, and I've heard that this one ends well. And so I'm looking forward to it. She writes very creepy, thrillery books, and so I really hope that this brings the creep factor. And if it does, I'm almost guaranteed to really like it. All right, one that I have no excuse for. Beyond Redemption by Michael R. Fletcher. Now, this is supposed to be the grim darkest of the grim dark. And I've had this for quite some time. This is self-pub. And I've been looking forward to reading it. I don't know why I haven't yet. Like I said, this is one I just have no excuse for. I need to pick it up. Let me read you the tagline. Faith shapes the landscape, defines the laws of physics, and makes a mockery of truth. Common knowledge isn't an axiom, it's a force of nature. What the masses believe is an axiom. But insanity is a weapon, conviction a shield. Delusions give birth to foul new gods. It definitely sounds good, and I definitely need to pick this up very, very, very soon. All right, we have made it to the bottom shelf of the TBR cart. And Priest of Bones by Peter McLean. Now, this is a series I've been very excited for. It is dark fantasy. And we have a priest who goes to war, who had established all of these things to take care of his people when he left. But when he comes back, he finds the system corrupt and the people starving. So I'm looking forward to this one quite a bit. And again, it's one that I really need to pick up soon because I really think this is going to be up my alley. The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. Now, I did just recently read Spinning Silver, so that makes me even more excited to read The Bear and the Nightingale because I've heard they have very similar feels to them, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. The Empress Game by Rhonda Mason. They took her world, now she'll take their throne. What a tagline, right? Now, this is a space opera battle for the throne with a competition at the heart of it. And that makes me very excited. I really like reading books that have the competition trope in them. And this being a space opera, I really feel like this is going to give me kind of like Red Rising vibes, and or I'm hoping for that at least. You know, I really love the competition aspect of, you know, the Hunger Games and Red Rising. But looking forward to this quite a bit. Whew, the longer this video goes on, the more my allergies are starting to go insane. So might try to get through the rest of these a little quicker. So next we have another book of the month offering, and that is Fate of the Fallen by Kel Cade. I've actually heard this book is not that great. And that's what stopped me from reading it so far. But I do like characters that are a little unapologetically unorthodox, I guess is the best way to say that. And so I do still want to read this, but I also want to read it to have my 2 cents put in on it, because there's a lot of stuff that I like that people don't like. There's a lot of stuff that people love that I don't like. So I really want to weigh in on this particular book and see if it's a book that I can actually recommend, or if I just don't like it either. Another book that is likely to be an Andrew and Trinity buddy read are Scott Baker's The Darkness That Comes Before, Prince of Nothing, Book 1. Now, this is dark. This is dark. It's psychological, philosophical, and there's a lot of things in it that I might not like. There's a lot of things that I might really love, but it's dark. That's the thing you need to know going into this one, and this is a very, very dark series. All right, next we have Dimension Space Series, Book 1, Solitude, Dean M. Cole. Now, this is about a guy and a girl who think that they are the last people in existence. However, one is on the Earth and the other is in space, and they are trying to figure out a way to get back to each other. I think that this is a really cool premise, and I'm just very excited to read it. I did actually purchase the audiobook for an immersive read, so I will probably get to this one pretty soon. All right, and this one, I apologize for the sticker. It just does not want to come off, but A Blight of Mages is the prequel to Kingmaker, Kingbreaker for Karen Miller. And since that is a series that I plan to read next year, I had put this one on my TBR cart because it is the prequel to that. And from what I understand, these lean into grimdark, but aren't quite grimdark. They're just very bleak. And the world is broken kind of viewpoint. That's what I know about this. Next, I have a couple of young adult thrillers that I picked up. This is The Cousins by Karen M. McManus, who has been very well received in quite a few fronts, as long as you are a thriller fan. And on that same note, I have The Project by Courtney Summers. Courtney Summers wrote Sadie, which I did enjoy. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. And that was only because one of the POVs I didn't enjoy. So, and not that I didn't like it. It just wasn't what I was expecting. And so I did pick up The Project by Courtney Summers. Sabriel, I don't feel like I need to talk much about because I feel like every fantasy fan has read this. I just have not read it yet. A Declaration of the Rights of Magicians by H.G. Perry. You guys know that this is a series I meant to start this year and I did not. But this is set up during the Age of Enlightenment, and magic is playing into how the government is established. And so looking forward to that. Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Rowanhorse. This is an urban fantasy written by a Native American author, which that is the reason I picked it up. I do like urban fantasy. I did like Black Sun by Rebecca Rowanhorse, so I'm hoping that this is a series that I will love as well. The Red Knight by Miles Cameron, another series that I meant to start this year that I did not. And if you ask my friend Dom, it's not worth it. But I think I will like Miles Cameron, and I'm looking forward to starting this series whenever I do. And last but not least, we have The Kingdom of Liars by Nick Martell. Now this has a really cool premise. This was another that I picked up because of my Twitter Darlings video. This is a book where memory is currency, so I thought that was a really cool concept. Now I have heard that this book is a little slow, so I will probably be picking up the audio to do an immersive read of it, but I'm looking forward to this, and I have heard from a few people that this is amazing. All right, those are all of the books that are currently on my TBR cart that I'm looking forward to starting in the new year. Like, subscribe, do all the fun things, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!